Oh wait, sorry. It's going the wrong way.
Are we ready?
So put these on soon, yeah?
You don't have to.
Yeah.
It's not essential for you. It's a distraction for you. The hosts need to wear them, but are you used to wearing headphones? Have you been on the radio before?
Yeah.
Okay, then go ahead. Yeah.
It's better for hearing, I find.
Okay.
And you're yellow if you need to turn it up.
Okay, cut.
That's you.
Hi everyone. Welcome to Talk Recovery. That's my lipstick. I don't normally wear lipstick. Shit.
It's not off yet, but just getting ready.
He's good.
There's a camera to come out. This day and age, what was I thinking? Huh?
So this is 3.5 minutes long. You want to play the whole thing? Okay.
You can cut it if you want.
That's up to you. Your choice.
No, yeah, it's
Okay. I'll cut it.
hello and welcome to Talk Recovery on Vancouver Co-op Radio 100.5 FM. We're live today in the studio with Darren. No Giuseppe today. How you doing, Darren?
Oh, I missed Giuseppe, really.
Right? You gonna cry?
I'll be okay. Nice sunny day downtown, though. I just came in for Port Coquitlam. It's pouring rain. So it's nice to be out in the sunshine, get a little vitamin D.
It was hailing in Burnaby.
Yeah.
And then I come down here and it's beautiful and sunny. It's so weird.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
That's Vancouver for you. Anyway, welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. We come every Thursday, 12 o'clock, Talk Recovery. Welcome to our Facebook listeners as well. And we're down here. Francis and I were members of the co-op family. So any of you listeners out there and viewers on Facebook, if you like our show and you want to keep these shows going, please hop onto the website, Co-op Radio, and become a member, because that's how we keep this thing going. And also by Last Door Recovery Society and Westminster House in New Westminster. So we bring interviews, we bring the conversation about what the problem is, the cause and effect, and many solutions. Unlike today, we have another great interview about the solution, about healing, about a new process in this venture. So let's just toss it over to Francis.
Hey, thanks, Dan. So today we get to talk recovery with the owner and director of An Extraordinary Life and the Healing Center, Mr. Dane Stevens.
Hello.
Hello, welcome to Talk Recovery.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's great. So you are the creator of the neurotrauma healing process.
Yes.
We will call NTHP, and the soul recognition process, which we will call SRC. So can you share your personal story of how these modalities were created?
It all came out of sheer necessity when I was dealing with a childhood trauma, and I had someone try to force the trauma out of me. I didn't know anything of healing or energy or trauma at that time, so I really just trusted what was going on, and that's where I learned that you don't try and force a trauma out. And I got messed up in a really bad way, and she didn't know how to fix it, and I went into a huge downward spiral and lost everything, and ended up eventually being homeless. And in that, I went on a mad search to figure out what happened to me and how to get my life back. And it took a number of years, but this is the result. I had to learn about trauma, what trauma was, what happened, and first of all, to understand what happened to me. And through some of John Bradshaw's work, some of Peter Levine's work, this is the process that has come forth. That is quite profound, and I don't say that because of anything that I have done. This process just shows us not only how we work, but it shows us that we can bring these things in our subconscious to resolution and not have to keep coping with them, not have to compensate for them.
And medicate them.
And medicate them.
Yeah.
Of course,
Yeah. So I think so I was gonna describe you as a coach or a counselor before we went on air, and you said no, I don't really do that, and it's person-centered therapy. So
Yeah.
So what did you mean by that?
So a coach or a counselor, I've been a coach and a counselor for years, and I don't do that anymore because this process, you get your answers from within you. This is not me telling you what to do, showing you a way. We know inside of us, and the first step, of course, is healing and bringing those past issues to resolution, but it doesn't matter what you do outside of you. You know, it's the inside work, and we facilitate people to connect with that part within them that is wounded, that is scared, that is out of control, or whatever it may be. And they are able to give themselves what they need through this process in a safe and gentle manner so it doesn't keep happening. Anytime anybody has anything that is chronic weight, chronic pain, addiction, depression, I can assure you have something stuck looping in your nervous system unprocessed.
Yeah, that was a phrase that I saw on your website, and it's a great website. I really do encourage people to check it out if they're interested in learning more about this. It's anextraordinarylife.ca.
Yes.
Right, and and there was that phrase caught my eye. This trauma is looping in your nervous system. How can you know if that's happening, and how can you fix it?
So if you have a negative pattern happening in your life that you have not been able to handle or heal, you have something stuck looping in your nervous system unprocessed. And as simple as that sounds, it is that simple. The hard part, it's not news that the subconscious mind is the key to our healing. We just haven't known how to access in a safe and gentle manner, and that's what this does. It gives us quite direct yet safe and gentle access to this, and that is part of the reason it's person-centered, because you get your answers from within you, and you only go as far as is right and is good for you. And it's interesting, this process, because we say we let the process guide us, because we let the part that is feeling hurt, feeling wounded, we leave that part in charge as to how much they get, how much they do, and the healing that is required.
So what does a sort of an average session with a client look like? Because I'm trying to understand, because for me as a counselor, I think sometimes that people want results. Do you know what I mean? And so I'm wondering how it would work in a way where you're letting the process guide itself or whatever, in terms of having concrete results, like whether people would be like, okay, like my guided self needs to hurry up, or you know what I mean?
So good point, thank you, because in the start you need a facilitator in the start. The process itself is very simple. It's a left-right brain process, which is the foundation. There's a lot of different aspects to it. But in the start, you need a facilitator to guide that part of you, to keep it safe, to say things that you're not able to say for yourself, to point out the pattern, or how you're treating yourself, or that you're treating yourself the same way your parents treated you, or what have you. So in the start, you need a facilitator, but it's interesting because when the inside changes, the outside changes. There's nothing to do. And I think a lot of times we get stuck in the doingness, and that's, so much of it is external. It tends to be external. So life really is an inside job in my experience, and when the inside changes, when you give that part of you what it needs, when you make that part feel safe, let that part know this is not happening anymore, that's not happening anymore, it changes, and your outer experience changes. You will see results.
I think I'm getting a bit stuck here on what do you actually do? Like, it's not talk therapy, right? So, because when I checked out some videos on your website, it's like, this is where, I'd been in talk therapy for a long time, and, wasn't seeing any results. This person had tried your system, or I don't know if I should call it a system, process? Yeah. And then they saw the results. They had less anxiety. They had just real benefits, things that were stuck, patterns, cycles. And but what do you actually do in a session?
So what happens in the case of a trauma, this is a bit of a generalization, but the right brain gets locked out. That is our power, creative, imagination side. It's our power side because thoughts are things in that way. So when we are able to process that which is stuck, all of a sudden that's where things change. So we do a left-right brain process where you can consciously process things. And we also do guided meditations where we may even take a person out of the trauma when it's happening. Because what happens when we experience a trauma is time stops. So what I mean when I say that is it keeps happening at that time. We've all probably experienced somebody, an adult, maybe even a prominent adult, who gets their buttons pushed and all of a sudden they act like they're 6 years old. And maybe that's exactly what happened. They got triggered and go back to the time when they're 6 years old.
Darren's laughing. I think he has. I think there's something going on where Darren became like a 6-year-old lately.
This guy I know. Yeah.
a friend. Shall not be named.
That's right. Yeah. I was wondering. So, the process, as you say, is sort of a reliving or a re-experiencing of said trauma.
So we don't want to, how do we put this? You have to touch upon the energy of that experience.
Sure.
So in touching upon the energy, but the thing is we do it in a way, that's where it's person-centered, is you make a connection. It's interesting, the subconscious mind does not know anything outside of the inside of you.
Right.
It is stuck at that time. So when you connect with that part of that time, it's been alone for a long time.
Yeah.
So when you're able to connect that part and let it know it's not alone anymore. I'm here with you, you're safe. And therefore, it's not about trying to force it out of that trauma or even change anything. You're making that part feel safe. Because the truth is, it's not happening anymore.
Right.
But that's what, every time you get triggered, you go right there, and it's totally unconscious. The synapses goes off in your brain, and you got the second drink in your hand, you're yelling at your wife, what have you.
At the time of the trauma, is it not instinctive for the human, maybe it's a survival mode that goes way back to sort of just not focus on, gee, what's the appropriate way of coping with this moment? You know, how should I, express myself appropriately? Like, it's just sort of survive, get through it, right? And I guess the outside world is just an amazing vehicle to distract ourselves. And then enough time goes by and we think we're functioning, we think everything's fine, I've made it to yoga class and I got to work and, and I'm eating and enough time's gone by. I think I've dealt with it. And this is the unconscious state that we're in, that we haven't actually dealt with this thing, right? So there was a part on your website that I read about re-choosing. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Is that sort of like you want to look back in hindsight and go, how would you have decided to have dealt with that on a more appropriate level? If you could go back, kind of question, what would you do differently?
Right. So you're able to go back to that time in a safe and gentle manner, not have it be re-experienced to the point where you're out of your comfort zone and out of your realm. And when you do that, we're able to take that part out of that situation. To forgive simply means to give the energy back to that time or back to that person because it's not yours.
I love that.
So when we are able to, what happens is we look at that, get triggered, and we're gone somewhere else. We're back to that time, and we're doing things that are not supporting us. Mm-hmm. So when we can support them, this is why you need a facilitator in the start, where you can be with that part and give that part what it didn't get. And the thing is, these traumas, there's many different degrees and types of traumas, as we know.
Sure.
So the thing is, a lot of times we experience what we'll consider a trauma or the negative pattern happening at a later time, but that's really not the cause. So a lot of times, like EMDR, we end up working back to the cause. Mm-hmm. But each time, you need to be able to show up for yourself. Give yourself what you didn't get at that time. Give yourself what you need to feel safe, to feel loved, to take that step, to say no, whatever that is.
Yeah.
But, most of it, as we know as counselors, stems from our childhood.
Sure.
And that's for the cause.
I'd like to ask a question about that. Sorry, Darren.
No, it's okay.
But I'm just totally cut you off there. We're having fun. We're having fun, yeah. We're Canadian. But yeah, I'm wondering, okay, so I'm thinking, when I think trauma, I think of my ex. No, Sorry, terrible. Okay, but then I think I chose my ex because of my childhood. So how do you, it's almost like you have to go through your entire life and like sort it, you know, like mend it or forgive it or whatever. Is that what you do with the clients? Is go all the way back to...
you know, to say you chose that is pretty harsh. Like, you know, I understand what you're saying, but maybe it occurred because of what the message you're sending out. You know, life works, I believe, perfectly as to what we're sending out is what we're going to get back. Mm-hmm. That's where life is the perfect feedback system, because you always ask what we're thinking, what we're believing, and how we're treating ourselves.
I love that.
Yeah. So in that way, it's the outer world is a great feedback system. It's also secondary, right, showing us what's going on inside of us.
So primary would be quiet reflection, moments of meditation,
separating from your thoughts, knowing you're not your thoughts.
Right.
Yep.
Right. So you talk a lot about you know, meditation. Is this something that's like, you know, sort of the aftercare process, you know, for someone to, you know, maintain their healing processes that they get through the neurotrauma healing is to continue to,
right,
you know, have a balanced meditation life?
You know, as Francis said, I have to go through my whole life. And it seems that way, but we have certain causes, and when we get to that cause, and it's profound work, because we don't keep our clients for long, and for two reasons. One is because you're able to bring it to resolution, not have to have a coping skill, or not have to compensate for it or try to overcome it or blow through it. And also, once you have traction, we call traction when you have a consistently positive, healthy relationship with life within you. Once you have that, you can take the work over on your own. And this work does travel a long ways. When Peter Levine said, trauma is one of the paths to enlightenment, I just went, what the heck are you talking about? But it does travel a long way. So when you're able to heal these parts of you that have separated off from you, become traumatized, and collect them back in, you automatically realign yourself with the higher consciousness in you.
Yeah.
And that's where you go to the soul recognition work, where you get to connect with the different aspects of you. And in that way, it's no longer just healing work, it's empowerment. It's learning how to feed yourself, how to let your soul out, who you are, come forth, and not get in your own way and stop yourself.
I'm very curious. I just thought just came to me here. In your work, in your experience in working with other people with trauma, does it give them a potential for future or present trauma to sort of deal with in the moment, or is trauma such a thing that you can't get through it on a completely self-aware level, like you just, or else it wouldn't be trauma?
Right.
So, but if you're dealing with one trauma, you find success, you find healing, you're changing patterns in your life, and then boom, massive loss hits your life. Are those people then more empowered to deal with it quicker, or susceptible to falling back into old ways again? Do they have to go through a whole new thing? You know, any enlightenment on that one?
So how do you know when you've dealt with something?
Yeah.
You know you've dealt with something where it comes up again, and you're present with it and go, oh, interesting, and there's no reaction. So, you know, you have that where something comes up and they go, what happened again? Oh, how you doing? Pretty good. Yeah. So it's just not, and if it's not inside of you, there's nothing to come out. If there is fear, anger, self-loathing, whatever coming out, it's because it's inside of you. So if you have that episode where you feel diminished, or you feel like you're lost, or what have you, go inside. Give that part what it wants and needs. But as you keep doing this, it's profound, because you'll be maybe in a family setting, and you'll be thinking, should I be getting upset at him right now? And it's just not there anymore. And in that, there's nothing to do out there. When the inside changes, your outer experience changes. And it's profound, because you get to just simply experience it, and it's very like you do the head tilt, like, shouldn't something be going wrong now? This is where something crashes now, and it's not.
A part of my healing process was writing a memoir, And so I found that was this thing of like re-experiencing the trauma and sort of putting all the pieces together, even of myself, but just sort of creating a different picture. And I'm curious if like this right brain and left brain, if that I was sort of like intuitively, because actually when I forgave my ex, I had the idea for the book. So I feel like maybe even our systems are almost wired when we do process our stuff to come together. Like it's almost like our system wants to come together. Would you agree with that?
So when you say come together, what does that mean?
I don't know. I guess I feel like trauma a little bit, like I have experienced trauma, and it's almost like trauma shatters. Like trauma, like it's almost like if I could picture my brain, it's like it shatters like glass.
Right.
And I think for me, the process of writing my book again and stuff was this process of collecting the pieces and sort of like, and I think kind of that's why maybe people feel like they're broken or something, you know, it's like this thing where you're mended and you're put together, but you're still, yeah.
And you know, as you know, with trauma, it's a time where we go into overwhelm. Our nervous system breaks down because it can't handle it. And therefore we try to, in the brain's MO is survival, so it tries to push it underground or out of the way, and we'll try to be okay because we are here, we want to survive. But that's exactly right. These parts continue to cycle within us, but they have split off from our current reality. So that's exactly right. We are literally collecting these parts of ourselves back. And it's profound because when you do collect these parts of yourself back, you literally feel more whole, more solid. You actually feel the warmth inside of you. And that's really what the process is collecting these parts back so you can be whole. And I think whole might be a bit of a misunderstood word, but you just kind of said it right there. We get fragmented in our mind, and each time, each trauma, each experience that is negatively impacting us, it takes a bit of our attention.
But even that original trauma can be, okay, I don't want to get too much into myself here, but so if your father leaves when you're young, then you're attracted to the guy that doesn't love you, then, and then, you know, then he leaves or whatever, and then your kids treat you the way that, you know what I mean? Like trauma goes on and on and on. Like trauma, if you don't deal with trauma, it will just infect your entire life and your children's lives and everything. Like it's, forgiveness
I'm
is...
here to tell you it does not have to be that way anymore.
Yeah.
You can bring it to resolution. And when I say resolution, as in healed, as in you're no longer seeking your father. You're no longer seeking the love that is not available.
Right.
You will never get the love of your father. And as horrible as that sounds, you know, through this work, we learn to become our own source. Mm-hmm. And same thing with relationship. A couple things about relationship. First of all, we get into a relationship. What happens is our trust level comes up. What happens when our trust level comes up? Our stuff comes out. So our stuff comes out, and all of a sudden, person, that's not the person I married. What, you've changed. You know, that's where a relationship needs to be based on growth, because we are growing and changing. But with this work, the ultimate is we become our own source. When you go back and can give that part what it needs, let that little girl know, I'm here for you. I love you. I know who you really are, and give her the love that she didn't get at that time. Then you can become whole. And it's the mistake is trying to get your father's love. And so many people, no, I'll love myself, but I need my father's love. And it's like, no, you're not loving yourself because you're giving your love to somebody else that you can't get it from or trying to get it from. So when you become your source, then you go into a relationship as love, not looking for love, not doing an exchange program which will never be fulfilled, will never make you happy. So when you become the source of your happiness, your love, your security, that's wholeness. Then you're present, then you bring the light to the party.
And coming from an experience of a downward spiral, a bottom, if you will, and sort of reinventing healing for yourself, was there not an influence in your life? Like you spoke about the forced out trauma, the negative influence, right? That sort of sent you off. What was the positive influence for you?
So first it was Hazel Carter out of Los Angeles, and I discovered her, and she was a student of Peter Levine. who works with trauma. So she was the first one, and I mean, forever indebted to Hazel. And I didn't get the full relief there, so I kept on my path, on my search, if you will. And that's where I discovered the Homecoming from John Bradshaw. And that was the start of the foundation of this work. And I could not believe that nobody developed that process. And that's all that I did, was develop the process, because nobody has developed it. So John Bradshaw is the inspiration for me, but I couldn't find anybody to do this work with me because I was all hurt and wounded and broken. And it took me, first of all, I tried to do it on my own. And it was an 8-month fight with myself, which I could not connect and create that trust, and wanted to beat myself up daily. So that didn't work. So I kept searching for a counselor or therapist that would do this type of work. Nobody did. I could not find anybody. And it was really ironic because when I finally, after searching the internet and you know, phoning countless people and asking them to try it, and she was across the street from me, literally.
Wow.
So it was Mary Hoffman, and I worked with her for 2 months. And after 2 months, I took the process on my own. And the rest of this process, I swear, kind of revealed itself, wrote itself, needs to be brought forth, is the way I see it.
Well, I mean, it's so interesting to hear it, you know, try to explain something that, you know, is a bit difficult to explain, you know, but I guess that's sort of the beauty, that, you know, a lot of these processes are just, they're an experience.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. And so you now work out of Vancouver.
North Vancouver.
North Vancouver, and you provide the teachings for those counselors or people working in the field of healing and to become certified practitioners of these methods.
Yeah, we work with people one-on-one, so if anybody who needs help, and that's either in person or over the internet. Most of our clients are from other places in the world, and we also certify people to get certified in this work. Needs to be known about, and we're talking with colleges and universities right now to get it to be certified, the certified healing modality, and that takes some time. Yeah. But we need more people trained in this, and it's profound. And the thing is too, you know, to get certified, you get certified when you have done your work and you go through this and you become whole, and it becomes very clear and very obvious when you do this. So it's not, just to be clear, we want more people trained in this, but just to be clear, it's not just a course. You get to do your work.
You have to be a student first.
Yeah, well...
Do you try to inflict trauma and see how they respond?
No, nothing like that. Nothing like that. We've all got enough trauma. No more trauma.
This is how we'll know if you pass the test.
Well, Dane Stevens, An Extraordinary Life is... that was the title of your Facebook page. Is there a website people can go to and check it out?
Go to anextraordinarylife.ca.
Okay.
And we also have the healingcenter.ca. So it's just healingcenter.ca. TRE for center. Yeah. And a book coming out called Reclaim Your Power, which is a guidebook that's coming out. Should be summer or fall. It'll be done.
We'd love to have you back on to talk about your new book when it comes out.
Love to.
Yeah. Thank you for being here today. Dane Stevens from An Extraordinary Life. Check out his website. And fun. Darren, first song.
Well, we're going to go to a song, and then next up, our personal story with Jolene. So stay tuned. Keep watching on Facebook. Our first song, Ghost Brothers, A Beautiful Life.